Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, talking about all things the world of software development. I'm one of your hosts. I guess I was trying to think of something for myself, for a name of myself, but maybe Frank can. But I'm one of your hosts, James Montemagno, and always the most elegant co-host.
Person? Thank you.
I wouldn't say person, but co-host at least. Elegant person. Mr. Frank Kruger, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, very good. So I was going to go with narrator for you, but with that opening, we'll just go with ringleader. You are the ringleader tonight. Or what do you call the guy at the boxing match? One or the other. You're either in a circus or a boxing match.
The Hugh Jackman movie.
Showman.
The Showman. Ooh. We just watched Frank Kruger. We watched a Hugh Jackman movie. Is called The Sheep Detective. It's an Amazon movie. It is absolutely spectacular. Look it up. Sheep Detective, Hugh Jackman. Also, by the way, in this movie specifically, he extremely reminds me of our good friend, Craig Dunn.
That's funny.
Yeah, because
he's always looked like Hugh Jackman, but yes.
Always has.
There's like a whole genre of animal detective movies lately.
What?
What? Maybe I'm hallucinating, but like I thought there was another like sheep detective movie, but maybe he's just in the sheep. Like, do the sheep talk, or is he a sheep? Okay,
so no. So something happens to Hugh, but the sheeps talk, but the humans can't hear the sheeps talking. Right?
Classic.
It's like
he needs a princess to kiss him. Yeah. Gotcha.
Accurate. That is correct. Yeah. So it's very, very good. I'd recommend it if you can find it. It's on the Amazon Prime and or anywhere else you can stream without an Amazon.
Too busy watching Clarkson's Farm and Real Sheep doing sheepy things. So, that's what I do on my Amazon.
Dude, one time we were driving through Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland, where I think Martin, my boss, Woodward, lives, is exactly how you would picture it. It is just absolutely stunning, beautiful, rolling hills with sheep. They're just all there, just doing sheep things. Have you been to Northern Ireland? Have you been like up to the...
Yeah. We kind of did a rampage. We went through the country pretty quickly. I mean, as fast as you can on half wide streets, but so I saw it's all a little bit of a blur. I can't remember what was the north, the south, the middle, but technically, gorgeous country, obviously.
We were in Dublin. And we're like, okay, we're in Dublin. We've been here and I've been there before for work. We should do something else. And we saw this big green bus go through the city, and it was called the Paddy Wagon. And I said, we should do that. And we looked at the Paddy Wagon, and it was like $50 a person.
Tourist.
It was an 8-hour. You went up all the way up through Northern Ireland. You went all the way to the Giant's Causeway, which is like way up on the northern coast. And then you also stopped in Belfast. And you also stopped at where Game of Thrones, like there's an intro part where Game of Thrones, I've never seen Game of Thrones, but iconic thing. It was spectacular. And the thing that makes those tours, makes or break it, Frank Kruger, is your guide.
The ringleader. Yeah,
it's the ringleader.
The showman.
The showman. Either that driver is going to be on it or not. And our driver legitimately was amazing. And that made the day.
I think those jobs are pretty cutthroat. So if you are not a witty, funny Irish person, I don't think you're going to make it in that job. So I believe you. And I believe most Irish people are witty and funny. So sure.
Well, let's get into our topic tonight. A few weekends ago or weeks ago or last week, whatever day, we talked about polish of the things that we're building, which I think is really important. I think that the user flow, the tiny details, the craft, if you will, the showmanship of our boutique software, if you will, we really pull it back to Hugh. Is really important. And Frank, you've released something into, I believe you might have, I don't know if this website is available, but I believe that you may have released into the world the next iteration of polish when it comes to working with these agents.
I'm not even sure I would go with this with polish. These are more like the rough cuts, sir, which is kind of funny. But to continue your analogy, I shall. But to be honest, I was so a little background story. I get frustrated with AIs, especially around user interface work. I
Wait.
complain about it.
You get frustrated with artificial intelligence? Let me just remember the first word, artificial, the second word, intelligence. Put those two things together. Yeah. Artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence, it's artificial.
Yeah, and real artificial taste, let me tell you. That's what it's AT. I think if you go back to episode 100, when James first let me talk about AI, I was using like GPT-2 to generate XAML. And I'm like, I went straight to UI because that's like all I really care about. Like, yeah, anyone can write an algorithm to do anything. A monkey can do it, but it takes a real developer to write a user interface, in my opinion. Anyway, I was getting a little frustrated with the AIs, and someone a little flippantly on Twitter once said, why don't you just write a markdown file with all the rules you've learned over, 25 years of writing software professionally into a simple little markdown file that you can just throw into an AI? And I'm like, well, that's impossible. But I decided to finally take up the challenge because I was getting super annoyed. And so with the help of an AI, I wrote out a little markdown file. It is ingeniously called UI.md. In other words, it's some markdown. You should throw it at an AI anytime you're doing any kind of UI work. And it's the most basic rules, in my opinion, for how UIs should function, basically guardrails around how to build UIs, what's important, what's not important. And it all comes from a frustration. You had mentioned design.md from Google earlier. But the more I looked into design.md, it was all about like colors, like spacing, like the stuff that matters. That's the polish, that's the lipstick. But I'm talking about the pig. I want to work on the pig. I want the whole hog here. I want to say, like, should it have 4 legs? Should it have 1 tail or 2 tails? I'm a 1 tail person. So it's those basic guardrails. And I just found AIs making tons of what I considered common sense mistakes. Like, if you're building an interface for humans, these are the things you should consider. And it's a set of those rules.
My opinions are is that I think that AI likes to take shortcuts. It's like a contractor. Yeah. It's like, oh, I hired an electrician or like a HVAC. Not electricians are okay. I hired an HVAC person. And they're like, you know what we're going to do? Oh, we have to run this pipe, but we just have to drop your ceiling by 4 inches. Like, but like, that's going to have like this weird notch for the rest of my life in this thing. Yeah. But like, that's where it needs to go. But like, but maybe have you considered maybe not doing that? And then they're like, oh, I never considered not doing that. Well, let's talk through some others. So interestingly enough, Frank Kruger, my favorite part about working with AI is the stuff that maybe you've solved, because I have fun working with the AI to finesse the user interface to exactly my specifications, because I still feel like there's a craft. A lot of people think, AI just does the code, right? You just give it a thing, it does a thing. It can. But the thing is this polish that we've been talking about. And the thing that I believe to my core, obviously still being a developer, is not only prompting and the systems around it, but also like reviewing the code and understanding what's going in the architecture and like giving it the guardrails. But also like those small details are so important for me that I personally like to, it's like I'm coaching my coworker and or myself on how I want to improve the user interface. Now, that being said, I do get frustrated when I've already created a user interface in a beautiful way that I want. And then I'm like, oh, can you also create this page? And it like messes it up. So what is this thing? Is this from the jump? Is this something that I iterate on and I tell it my thing? You got 17 stars in 3 hours. So that seems impressive. So like, how am I going to integrate this? And like, how are you integrating it into your workflow today?
I am literally just dumping it into my agents.md because like that is the most surefire way to like make sure the AIs actually pay attention to this stuff.
Not like a skill. No, skill.
Not a skill, because a skill is a function. A skill is an action that you invoke when you want to invoke it. This is like, I'm making up for a poorly trained model, in my opinion, because no one trains. If you look at all like the coding benchmarks, none of them are user interface. Like they're just not. A lot of them are style. They'll create a gradient background and a cute font with a nice pastel color in a vaguely modern looking thing from 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
they don't know anything about human flow, like basic rules of clickable things should look clickable.
Yeah.
Non-clickable things should not look clickable. Hit
Yep.
targets should be large. You should prefer native controls and native layout over custom layout and that kind of stuff. The user interface model should be pretty close to the data model so that there's not this like constant battling between the UI and the actual object model that you're like writing in code. Those should actually kind of be in sync. And here, this is a crazy thought. If they're not in sync, change the data model to make sure the data model actually follows the UI model, because that's the easiest way to create bug-free software and good UIs around stuff. So it's a lot of those. I hope people will just go to it. It's at github.com/preclarum/ui.md and read through them. Like, you might have your own opinions, but they're very strictly, I think the kids would now call it UX, not UI, but I'm old, so I call it UI. It's not design. There's almost no design stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's all the common sense things of like,
no. You say it in the first sentence, prime directive. A UI is good when the program behaves the way the user expects it to behave. I don't know if you wrote that or the AI wrote it, but I don't know if it could be said better. Because when you expect a button to click in a certain way and a UI to react in a certain way and a picker to perform in a certain way, it is natural. Your mind doesn't have to think about it, because it is just as I expected. When I clicked on that button, it is doing the exact thing that I expected it to do. And I agree. I often see a lot of these UIs, and we'll talk about canvases later, so we've been building a lot of canvases, which are web UIs, where links and hyperlink things are doing things that I don't expect. So for example, often in these scenarios, the AI might say, well, here's a link to do a thing, but it's like more of a hyperlink looking thing in the web instead of a button, which is an action. I expect a link to navigate somewhere, whereas a button to do a thing, right? Yeah. So I'll say, click on, I want to create something that when I click on it, it opens a flyout navigation. Well, that should clearly be a button, not a hyperlink, which would be navigation, but it doesn't know the difference because it's just I'm going to do the thing.
This one's not a rule in there, but you're making me think I should add it. But like, a button mutates state. Like, that's what actually, it's not just take an action, it's mutate a piece of data out there. That's what a button does.
100%, because even in the flow where it is navigating, it is doing something, the state of the application is fundamentally shifting in so many ways. You're adding, you're deleting, you're done, you're the whole thing. And also, like, words and colors and placement matter. And this is like, I don't know if you figure this out in your UI.md, but when I'm thinking about save as, delete, done, like all of the word selection, I don't think I've thought about it as much as I have in like the last year, but they all really matter. Like, like in every programming language and every UI framework and every operating system, there's basically a primary button, secondary button, primary button. Like there's
primary is hit enter. There should be a button mapped to escape. You can think of it as simple as that, as keyboard mappings. Yeah. The primary button, you just whack the enter key.
And that's really an important thing. The AI is not going to know unless you tell it what the thing is. It's going to guess, and it's always probably going to be wrong. And what I've noticed is when I'm crafting these dialogues, it's almost always not how I want it to be.
Yeah. Well, and it's tricky too, because like if you're a web developer, you're in a really sticky spot. Because like, and I'm probably going to say this backwards, so I apologize, but like, Macintosh would have the primary button on the right-hand side, and Windows would have the primary button on the left-hand side. Like, so just basic fundamental layout differences between the two operating systems. So if you're a web developer, you kind of got to choose which side you're going to go with. And that's why the web is all over the place, because honestly, the operating systems are all over the place. So no one ever knows what to do with that stuff. The only thing I'll this is more design than UI, but I would argue color is not important. What's important is contrast. So design your UI as if it was always in black and white, and make things distinctive in a black and white world. you want to use contrast. Color is good to distinguish things. Color should never be used to identify things. Sorry, I keep coming up with more rules. I got to add to this stupid thing.
No, it's good.
But yeah, this is the problem with trying to summarize, years and years of UI experience into a markdown file. But I decided enough complaining about it. I just got to write it all down.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to do but just start writing it down.
I like your principles. You got match the user's mentor model. That makes sense to me, right? Prefer behaviors from existing apps, platforms, controls. Design around activities, not feature list. I like that, right? I'm managing a to-do list. I'm not just marking it as done. Think about the end-to-end scenario. Reduce decisions. That's really nice, right? Like you got 1,000 button clicks.
Funny thing in UI design, like assume the user is drunk and in a rush. Both. Yeah. Everyone designs their UIs like the user is completely concentrating on their app. No one's concentrating on your app. They're in a hurry trying to get something done, and they're browsing through it as quickly as possible. Assume the worst case.
Be consistent. This is probably the most important thing is be consistent in the app. Make actions visually obvious is what we were just talking about. Actions should be clear. Your eye should navigate to the primary action too, not just even all the actions. Yeah. Respect limited attention. What does that mean?
That's it. Well, that's what I was just saying about drunkenness, basically. Like, don't put a giant delete the entire database button next to the okay, I'm done button. Assume that someone's only half paying attention to your UI. In the old days, we used to say they're drunk, but now the nice way of saying it is they don't have a lot of attention.
You have respect imperfect motor control. This is the use large click targets, allow clicking the whole control, not just tiny arrows. It does. I've had this situation, especially in tiny clips, where I'm like, okay, I want to have the screenshot editor where it has an arrow and a line and squares and rectangles, and it will inherently make the click target just the icon, but not the entire box. And I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Absolutely batty. I mean, the old joke with that one was checkboxes or radio buttons where clicking on the label didn't do the checkbox. Yeah. But the same thing applies for buttons or rows in a list. Don't force people to click on a 20 pixel tall strip if visually the row is 44 pixels. Let them click anywhere on that row. That's the hit target. Make those as big as possible.
Last one, do not make users remember what the computer can show.
This one's tricky because there's a balance to be struck of the UI should be self-educating. Like if there's a piece of information someone needs to know critically at this moment, the easiest example is when you press the delete key and you say, are you sure you want to delete this? You're like, well, what is this? what was selected? Say are you sure you want to delete the person James? No, cancel, escape. I wasn't paying attention. So it's that even short-term memory. It's part of it is preventing mistakes, but other parts are don't assume because they selected something 2 steps ago that they remember that they selected something 2 steps ago. Just tell them.
That's true.
It doesn't cost you anything. Just reiterate it.
And a lot of these are really good. I've been working on the Copilot app. I've actually been contributing code, and it's usually a lot of tiny fixes to the things that kind of bother me. And I was really thinking about this polish. So I had one fix that was the app icon, that it didn't look really good in dark mode compared to light mode in Windows because it just doesn't change the icon automatically. It kind of like Mac does. So I just fixed it. And I fixed it in 2 ways. First, I fixed it where it would change from light to dark. And then I realized that actually looping into that event wasn't very good. So I just made it a normal icon that was good in both contrast, and it wasn't a big deal. But then I also realized that when there's a question, a little dot, how there's dots on Mac, right now there's a thing that might come up.
Yeah.
And usually we've complained about color on Mac, it shouldn't be green, it should be black or white. So it's black, and on Mac it obviously changes the contrast automatically. But on Windows it would be this black dot on a black background on a black icon. And I was I can't see this. So I changed the contrast to yellow on Windows, these small fixes, right? Really, really, really neat. I've contributed some bigger things, not as big as what the team does, but these little tiny fixes, because it's the polish. I was thinking about our podcast and I was what if I had the ability, which I do, to contribute to one of the most kind of glorious apps that I've like used in a long time,
Right.
and make some of these little quality life UX UI tweaks. And it makes me so happy because it seems silly. Like to change that dot from black to this yellow, which is a yellow, the same yellow in the app, which is the question yellow. It was 2 lines of code changes. It was if on Windows, change to this color, and that color was a constant, so you could easily change it. It wasn't like, just in a bunch of places. And it made me so happy that got merged. And then like when I see the yellow dot, I'm like, oh, I did that. Because it feels good. It's got good mouthfeel. It's got good, taste. It's a tastemaker.
And honestly, when you have a lot of developers working on something, those little things can get missed. I have this funny story. I think it's funny from when I was working on Windows at Microsoft. I was I forgot where I read it. It might have been an old new thing. It might have been something else. But they were talking about how the close button on a window, it's more like the Windows 95 kind of UI. Visually, that button does not go up to the full corner of the window. There's a little bit of a border padding on it. There's a margin or a padding, whatever you want to say. There's a gap between that button and the corner of the window. But what do a lot of people do? When the window's full screen, you just kind of throw your mouse to the, I forgot, the upper left or upper right at the time. That button keeps moving, sadly, on Windows. You would just throw your mouse up to the corner of the screen and click, because a very thoughtful UI person made sure that the close button hit target went all the way to the corner of the window, even though visually the button doesn't go anywhere near those pixels.
Yep.
And it was funny. I was working on Vista at the time. It was called Longhorn at the moment. But on some version of it that came out, I tested that because I'm anal retentive and I care about these things. And I noticed they had just changed a bunch of the Chrome on the Windows. And I noticed that it no longer did that. You had to throw the mouse to the upper right and then backtrack it a little to get on top of the X button. So I filed a bug against Windows and I got the weirdest reactions from people. Some people are like, you are insane. And then like out of the ether came all these old school people like, oh, we can't believe we messed that up. That's one of the most important features of the windowing system. And it was so cool. Like it became like a big to-do about how did this, there were like incident reports and investigations, like how did we lose this ability? This is a critical feature of the OS. And I thought it was so interesting that like even in a large org like Windows, that knowledge is there, but sometimes a new person's working on it, they never receive that institutional knowledge, and then it takes just a weirdo who's obsessing about that stuff to come back and be like, hey, go fix this again.
I love it.
So that's
well, on that note, let's take a quick commercial break to talk to our sponsor this week, Sabrent. Sabrent. You know them. They make storage, charging, docks, hubs, adapters. You've probably seen them on Amazon. They sent me this Voltic 252 watt 8-port USB PD 3.0 charger. Frank, this is absolutely astonishing. It's like $60, $70, whatever it is. It can do 252 watts total charge across 4 USB-C and 4 USB-A. And we're talking 100 watt per port max output.
My God.
It gives you a little display. It tells you your current voltage, wattage, everything on the display. You can rotate it. You can mount it. You can do all the things. Check it out. Sabrent.com and or Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes. Thanks to Sabrent for sending me $60 worth of good. And I have it. I have it plugged in. I'm plugging all of my laptops in, and it is absolutely fantastic. You can mount it. It's got a little lock kit on it, all the things. It's not plugged in right now if you're watching on YouTube, but it's glorious. You've probably seen it because they sent it to all the influencers on the internet. And thanks to Sabrent for sponsoring this week's pod, Frank.
I hope someday I'm an influencer so I can try awesome 100-watt ports.
I'm sure I could email George and then have George send you one too. So, hey, yeah. Anyways, I figured I told him I'd do a shout out on the podcast. So there it is.
That's great.
It's actually really cool. Like what the nice thing is too, they thought about this. So, the charging port's on the bottom down and you plug into the wall, but you might want to mount it. Or you might want it to be this way. If you triple click this, it'll rotate the screen 180 degrees. The little display.
Fascinating.
Smart.
Yes.
Yep. Anyways, it's pretty nice. Well, this is really super fascinating because I agree with you because, actually on Mac, you actually do have to get onto that red little block there. But I think all this stuff is really, to me, really, really important. We're talking about impeccable, and we're talking about like the UI designs, all these little things. This is cool. I'm going to drop this into my apps as you continue to build it out. Maybe I'll give you a week to kind of flesh it out.
Keep refining it. I
Did you?
do want to give one past closing shout out to it. It was funny when I was reviewing it. I forgot how much Joel Spolsky had influenced all my thoughts on user interface, and I went back to a very famous article. I think it's called "User Interface Design for Programmers." I
Yeah.
believe it was written in like 2001. I highly recommend everyone go reread it. It's like 10,000 words, but you can do it. I have faith. I think a book was even published at some point. That's how good of a blog entry it was. But it was so funny when I'm trying to remember all the rules of user interface that I follow. I forgot how many I basically just stole from Joel Spolsky. So shout out to Joel.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's kind of the interesting part about these designs. I know there's like skills, there's all these other design and impeccable, blah, blah, blah. But I think always when you respect someone and like the things that they've created, you get a lot of inspiration. So, I think what's kind of cool about this is like as I was reading through those bucket list items, I'm like, yeah, those are things that actually resonate with me, the things that I do want to instill in my applications that I'm going through. And as good as the AI is, I'm testing some like crazy new AI models. As good as they are, they're still, they're not me.
No.
And they don't have my design taste. And, where I worked at Xamarin, I always loved working with the designers. I always like to say I had an eye for design, but I'm not a designer. So I always loved being in the reviews and giving my input onto it, even if it wasn't like, implemented or taken. Maybe it was always well received and well taken. Yeah. But I went into it understanding like, hey, listen, I'm not a designer. I'm not you. I'm not a designer that has like, you are a designer, but I have an eye for design, which I think are things that resonate for me from a user interface, user experience flow. So I'd always give feedback. And I always loved when the designers like took me serious and I could jam with them. Antonio was always my favorite. And I always I've loved design. I've just loved it to my core. And I don't say I'm not a good designer, but I know when things are wrong. And that's almost as important of knowing when things are right.
Yeah, and it's harder because, in algorithm design, algorithms are very close to math. You can prove whether an algorithm is correct or not. That's why we have a lot of good benchmarks. We have a lot of so-so benchmarks for AIs. But human factors are much harder to codify, and they're culture inspired, they're background inspired. So I don't want to say it's easy to criticize, because it is easy to criticize because your taste, what makes you happy, what frustrates you. You have your own set of pet peeves. So good designers are able to take criticism because they know that human stuff is hard. It's really hard because everyone has slightly different opinions. We don't have powerful axioms of good UI or anything like that. I'm trying to write out a bunch of these little, at least lemmas, if not axioms, of these good UI things. But in the end, it's human preference inspired by a shared culture, inspired by differences in culture, inspired by shared experience and differences in experience. All of that.
Well, and what I've always said in my career personally, when it comes to design, especially like mobile app development, which is like what I do to this day, to my core, that's what I really enjoy doing the most, I would say, is there are a lot of smarter people that did a lot more user research and spent a lot more money on like actual designers to figure out the correct flow. So who am I to be like, you know what? Your tabs are wrong. My tabs are better than yours. And they could be, but I'm not going to have this unlimited Apple or Google resources or Microsoft resources that put into this user design. And additionally, to one of your points, which is like, do what the user expects. There's nothing worse than going into an application or a website where the UI isn't as expected and is fundamentally different, because our minds can only comprehend like so many different flows and user interactions. And when 90% of them are the same, of a button does this thing and then your button does something different, it actually throws you off. You have to think about it. Like, oh, is that right? Am I doing something wrong? You don't want to stop the user's flow. So I've always put myself in that mindset of adapting to the naturalness of the platform, which is when Google brings a lot of their applications from Android to iOS, their applications look more like Android applications. And I actually think that's fundamentally wrong. I wish that they would maybe adopt iOS isms even better, because if you're not an Android user, and I've never been an Android user, even though I have been, coming over, it's jarring. Like, it's jarring for you going from this. And I would say even this, being an Android user to being an iOS user, it is actually jarring to go from one idiom to another. And that's kind of important.
And it's hard. I was responding to an app review comment today. So in iCircuit, there's like a element library, and there's a lot of elements in the app. So it has to be a scrollable library, but it's also a drag and drop library, as in you can drag an element out of it onto the circuit.
Yeah.
These two operations, scrolling with your meat fingers and dragging an object with your meat fingers, they look a lot the same to code. And there are conventions on Apple, like, give it a half-second pause before you start dragging. And that's the difference between a drag operation and a scroll. If you just flick, it's a scroll. If you stop on it for just a half second, sir, and then move, it'll drag just fine. But there was a review comment like, I can't drag any elements onto the circuit. The thing just scrolls all the time.
Yeah.
And that is purely me not meeting user expectations. They have an expectation that they should be able to scroll and they should be able to flick things onto the circuit, no problem. I can give them a million technical reasons why that's not possible, or why they're not exactly following the Apple way of how to get these controls to behave. But I completely sympathize with them, because I am breaking my own rule. This is an obvious action to them. I want it to be an obvious action, but there is a fundamental contradiction between what your finger flicking there does.
Yeah.
And so I can't but apologize basically in the app review. I'm like, just a half second. Just rest your finger there for a half second before you move, and it'll be fine. But you know what? Half second is a long time, because every user is drunk and in a hurry.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's super fascinating. That's why I love UI design, and I love user experience design so much, because I think it's so fascinating, especially when you use your own product. It's the little tiny details. Like, I've been working on My Cadence recently. And My Cadence, it's this little app that shows a number on a screen, but it connects to a sensor, and it like disconnects from a sensor. And I'm struggling with this paradigm, which is auto connect, auto disconnect, start, stop. Like, what's the flow? Like, if you stop, but you have auto reconnect on, does it do this thing? But should you stop? Like, do you want to stay connected to a Bluetooth? What are you pausing? Are you stopping? It only says stop. Like, should you disconnect? I've been battling. I've been using. So as a user of my own app, I've been doing these tiny they are fundamentally microscopic tweaks to the wording, to the phrasing, to the action, to the thing. Right. A good example is, I told the AI, I said, listen, I think we should get rid of auto reconnect, because fundamentally it's a bad design. I don't think you should open the app and you should start reconnecting automatically. This causes problems when you stop, when you pause, and just the series. I think actually auto disconnecting is better, because one of the issues with Bluetooth, these little sensors, is that often if you background the app, the Bluetooth doesn't automatically disconnect. So you can like drain battery, and you actually have to swipe out. So I'm like, I really want to encourage the people that disconnect from the sensor. But I was thinking to myself, well, I said, how many users are actually pausing a ride and then restarting a ride? And what's that experience? So I was talking to the AI, and I said, here's what we need to do. So the AI inherently says, okay, when I stop a ride, I'm going to disconnect, which means I'm not connected, which means that the start button is disabled.
Oh,
and I go, well, that's a weird, that's a weird, I can understand if I launch the app for the first time, I'm not connected ever, so the button's disabled until I connect. So that makes sense. But I go, but I was just connected, and I'm stopped, But like, how do I resume? Oh, I got to click another button to reconnect, and then I got to do a thing? That feels incorrect. So I had to work with it. I said, oh, okay, no. Like, if you had already started a ride and you're in between a ride, leave it connected. But then if they click it, tell them they got to reconnect, and then say auto reconnect, and then start the ride. So it's like these little the flows. I think in your first thing is
it's important though. Yeah,
it's the flow. And if you don't use your own app and you don't tweak it so much, I think that's where you can run through these little itty bitty things. And heaven forbid you're writing a cross-platform application, then you have to worry about it in every single operating system. And that's the real, I mean, we know, right? But that's the real grind, man. I'm doing tiny clips on Windows and on Mac, and I'm fighting because I really like this one design that they really like did on Windows, and then I'm like, I don't know if it's better on Mac, and I know I'm using the native Mac paradigm, but like, I don't know if I love it. I'm doing this, I don't know, and so I'm fighting with myself back and forth. But Frank, I'll tell you this much: one thing I did find out talking about UI is if you have a great UI and you're doing something, you can register your app as like a open with provider, open with this app.
Mm-hmm.
So tiny clips, my favorite part of tiny clips that I have is not that I can like create a screen, like get a screenshot or do a video. Yeah. My favorite part is that I've really created a fantastic editor. So when you take a screenshot, it opens like the editor, and you can do like cropping, and it's like super fast circles and fills and strokes and numbers and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I was like, dude, what if I could just take any PNG, right click, open with tiny clips?
Yeah.
You can just register your app to like open a file format.
Sure.
And I did that. And like now I can open any PNG. It's like and it's like, you know what it does? It takes like 4 lines of code. Yeah. It's crazy. And I was like, whoa, that's so good. Anyways. So if you have
platform, did you do it on both?
Yeah. Okay. It's even easy. It's even easier on Windows. It's like you just have a schema or whatever. It's like super simple. And it just takes in data and it just like displays it. So now I can just like right click anywhere. I'm like, give it to me. But yeah, so user interfaces are so interesting. You should use tiny clips and like really critique it. Really tell me how much you hate it or love it.
I think we did an episode where you tore apart one of my UIs. So I think that we could do at least an hour of me critiquing every screen in tiny clips. But I do have to compliment you. I am happy that you put in, I always call them annotation editors, but yeah, where you can just add arrows and stuff to the thing. It's like, it's funny. Apple's own preview app does annotations, but somehow they made them really hard to use.
Yeah, it's the same on Windows. It's the same with snipping tool. I use snipping tool all the time. Annotation's so complicated.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know. Just like, give me the options, always available, do a thing. Yeah. Let me make a rectangle. Let me move the rectangle, easy peasy, and go from there. So yeah, I'm not saying my annotations are perfect, but it did a pretty decent job.
For the kind of stuff we do and for the kind of stuff the internet does, where basically you just need arrows most of the time and a few text
red arrows. I did recently add arrows with curves, which I'm really proud of. So you can curve an arrow. In an upcoming update, you'll be able to not only just move any item, but then also afterwards resize any of them in real time. That was a good one. That I'm doing. Yeah, I would say, I mean, Tiny Clips is fine. It's like a free app, right? But that's what I love about the internet. And I love about development today is if you can dream it, you can ship it. Frank, I kid you not. I've been battling, we're just off tangent now. I've been battling with caption files, like SRT files, VTT files.
I'm a little bit with you. These have been a constant. I finally learned how YouTube chapter marks work. They're so
nice.
But it's roughly the same idea of putting some text at certain time codes. And yeah, it's funny to like finally deep dive in. I was like, this must be so complicated. Like I'm looking at how to embed it in the MP4 format, like which metadata isn't supported. No, in the description you put a bunch of words, hyphen, and then a time code. I'm like, oh, that's actually simple.
Well, if you were to download the podcast metadata generator, which does it for any transcription, it would go ahead and give you all the YouTube things in the correct format.
Yeah.
I created something today called CaptionStack, CaptionStack.app. It's actually a really nice looking website. You can
You
critique
own
it.
every domain under the sun. No wonder I can never get a domain. You already own it. It's like, nope, James got this one.
Yeah. So this is like the origin. So I went today before I went on a walk at lunch. I said, here's what I need. I need a beautiful website that allows me to like give you any caption file, and I need you to convert it to any other caption file format. Give it to me. It's actually like a really good website. I'm pretty impressed. It has even samples, it has previews. It's got a bunch of things I'm going to do all in the browser, static website, doesn't leave anything.
Yeah.
Because I was having these VTT files and I needed to convert them to SRT files, which is subrip. And I had to go to sketchy websites. And when I got to go to sketchy websites, I don't want to do that. So I built this, and this is a 10-minute prompt to deployment app, and it's great. And this is the beginning. I'm going to like add a crap ton of It's a stack, so it's not just a caption app;
model?
It's a caption stack.
You got it. Which model?
This is in the Copilot app. The Copilot app. This is an unreleased model that I can't talk about.
Oh, fast! Oh, look at you! Because I've been burning all my credits on Fable. I almost went through a whole month. And
it's not Fable, but it's up there.
I'm not pressuring you. I'm just making the joke.
This app was 600 credits, so $6.
Okay, yeah,
not bad. I mean, $6 in 10 minutes.
Cup of coffee. Yeah.
This website is going to save me tons of time. Anyways. And I was like really impressed. It did some formatting. I love the colors. The little pink. It's my favorite color. It's like so good. But I love the world that we live in which I have this idea. I have this problem. I could just build it, right? We'll talk about canvases next week. We don't have time this week, but I have really been thinking about UI on demand. And this is why I think your application and your UI.md is so important, because I am generating more UIs than ever, but none of them look the same. None of them are consistent, and none of them are probably how I want them to be out of the jump. So I'm really intrigued by the UI.md. So I'm going to put this into my apps. I'm going to give it a go. But
sounds like you need the design MD also, though, because if you want consistent styling, you probably want the design MD also. But mine's going to give you that UX experience.
Well, I don't want consistent colors and design on every single website to be the same. I do want them to be unique. So I'd almost need to design the design.md from the jump.
That's going to be a new website. I can see it coming.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. I like this idea. So anyways, this is why all these things have me really thinking about the world we live in. And I was just telling our neighbor, I was just like, vibed out this website. And I didn't look at the code, but in this instance, I don't care. I'm not like shipping to production, but I'm not like running $1 billion business off of this or $1,000 business. I'm running a $0 business off of this, in which I need to convert one file format to another file format, which I've done this with Localmorph, which is another website that I own, which I might take down because I might, maybe not. That one I need to integrate with FFmpeg because it'll be way better. But in general, I have this idea. I can just like build it, and then the fun part, which is I have it, and it's now finessing. It is now the tweaking, the tuning, because I've honestly, Frank, always had fun with that. I've always, when I develop my own applications, artisanal code by hand, the most fun I have is not generating the code. It's making a wonderful, delightful user experience from the UI, which I'm so happy that you've dug deeper into this, because it is the thing that makes me the most happy, is making my users happy.
Mm-hmm. And it's the hardest part, but it's the most rewarding part, because I mean, in the end, why do you build a user interface? We could all just develop our own programming language and make the users type in a programming language, or we could throw them on the command line and be like, here, just memorize these 50 different command line arguments and get them right and format it and, pipe it through a few different commands. You probably need to do some piping. No, we build UIs because we know people just want to get the job done. And so the more efficiently you can allow them to get that job done, the happier it makes us. I mean, in the end, that's why we build UIs, so that people's lives are better. So when you improve someone's life, you become happier. Go figure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wild. All right. I'll put a link to everything in the show notes. And thanks to our sponsor, Sabrent,
Nice.
Sabrent, for sponsoring this week's pod. And they didn't actually sponsor. I'm just saying that they're sponsored because they sent me this thing. You can buy my sponsorship with a $60 device. There you go.
Comes cheap, people.
I'm a bottom of the barrel over here. I get so many emails, Frank, because I have my email address on my YouTube. I get so many emails. I archive and delete so many emails. It's like so much stuff. But when I got Sabra, I'm like, I've purchased your equipment. I have their dongle right in front of me. And I was like, I kind of want that. And that doesn't happen often. So when I said that, I reached out to George and I said, George, I kind of want that. Well, I asked George, hey, do you got a Thunderbolt 5 like dock? Because that's what I'm really.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
You have a $500 device.
And they're like, no, we don't make that. But maybe one day I was like, okay, I'll take this. I'll do this. Anyways,
go figure.
Give it a look in the show notes if you're looking for charging dock port thingy. It's got data on it, and like you could just have a dock, but this dock's got a screen on it. And it gives you data. It tells you the wattage, the voltage, the amperage, all the shenanigans. It's got the data. And as an electrical engineer, Frank approves. That's what we're going to do for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time, I'm James Watson Magno.
And I'm Frank Krueger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.